Hello, fantabulous humans of the interwebs! Welcome to eSpot Live! The late show. I'm still Ellie, this is still Rodney, that much at least has not changed, and I'm so glad that there's people in the chat. I was a little bit nervous, not gonna lie. Wasn't sure if anybody remembered. But I'm glad you guys did. I'm really glad that I did. Happy Monday! It is most definitely a Monday in all of the best ways. Yeah, thank you so much for joining me. I'm excited. I always start these with disclaimers, and today's disclaimer is a little bit of an apology too for last week. So if you guys caught my streams last week, especially on Thursday, it was a bit of a wreck because it just wouldn't connect and frames were dropping all over the place. From what I can tell, everything's running smoothly today. Knock on wood. I did everything I could to try to troubleshoot it, and I could not find a cause until I kind of looked online a bit and realized it looked like there was kind of a massive regional not power outage, but just internet outage from my provider in like a several county area around where I live. So it was out of my hands from everything I could tell. I do apologize. It says I'm hosted with viewers. Woo! It didn't come up in the chat. I thought it usually did. Hello, DJ Speedy. I lost track of my thoughts, which is fine. But yeah, disclaimer for today is, aside from the fact that we're in a noob time slot, thank you for joining. Internet seems to be running smoothly, but as always, please let me know as soon as you guys notice something goes wonky. If the sound's off, if the video starts dropping, if it is already dropping and I just can't tell on my end, let me know in the chat. And I'll see what I can do about it. Though, again, as you witnessed last week, sometimes not much. But I will try. What else? I also, yeah, I said this last time, but again, everything was a bit wonky last stream. So I do want to say a little bit more about some of the exciting stuff that I talked about on Thursday. One of which is what we're listening to right now. This particular song's a little bit kind of quieter and slower, but this is a brand new album just dropped by Zombie in a Jar. If you like the music that I play behind my streams, if you're interested in it for anything similar, a lot of us streamers at DVSI Entertainment use Zombie in a Jar in the background. And yeah, if you appreciate the music, check it out on Spotify. Brand new album, and several others that are all equally delightful. Plus shameless self-promo, a song called Doomsday, which may or may not have me in it. Okay, I'm getting feedback from Silly saying everything's great so far, so that is amazing. And on that note, I'm gonna go ahead and dive into newsy stuffs. If you're new around here, eSpot Live is a entertainment news show where I literally just babble about different topics in the entertainment news industry. Some sillier than others. The topic I'm going to start with today is a more somber one, but I feel like a celebration of life more so than, I don't know what words I was trying to put there, and that's okay. Unfortunately, Adobe's co-founder has passed away. Charles Geschke, co-founder of Adobe, developed or helped to develop the PDF, has passed away at the age of 81, according to the company in a formal statement. The CEO, Shantanu Narayan, said in an email to Adobe employees, "This is a huge loss for the entire Adobe community and the technology industry, for whom he has been a guide and a hero for decades." Co-founders of Adobe, Chuck, who passed away, and John Warnock, developed groundbreaking software. It has absolutely revolutionized how people create and community. Sorry, I got distracted by the chat. he absolutely revolutionized really so much as we know it. If you think about everything that Adobe's involved with, everything that PDF has influenced, even if it's not directly PDF related, it has changed the way we do paperwork, changed the way we as just humanity really has done filing, has done organizational structures and everything. It's really, really revolutionized office work across the board, creative tools, so many things are impacted directly by this. So incredible innovator, and a brilliant man, and a very sad loss. He actually started at Xerox with his partner, and then in 1982, the two of them left Xerox and founded Adobe. Their first product was Adobe PostScript, the programming language that helped boost the desktop publishing industry. He served in the community, he served in the company for decades. He's well loved, greatly missed, and is survived by his wife, Nancy, now 78 years old, who wanted to emphasize that while he was a famous businessman, the founder of a major company in the US and the world, and of course very, very proud of that, it was a huge achievement in his life, but that was not his focus, really his family was. He always called himself the luckiest man in the world. He was married to Nancy for 56 years, and leaves behind 3 children and 7 grandchildren. So I just wanted to kind of start off celebrating the life. And just appreciating the massive contribution. Like I said, I can't even wrap my head around how big of an impact that creation has across everything. The entertainment industry and many other industries. Literally world-changing innovation. That's all I have on that particular topic. The next topic is much different nature and much sillier, I suppose, in a way. So I want to be careful in how I transition, because I'm not the greatest at transitions, but I also, again, don't want to make light of a serious situation. This one in particular is a little bit of a deja vu, because this is not the first time I, on this show, have talked about a similar topic. Yu-Gi-Oh! Something that a lot of people are familiar with, has kind of re-hit popularity online as a collection of cards has gone viral because a wife is auctioning her cheating husband's card collection. Like I said, the sad thing is this is not the first time I've talked about a wife auctioning something that belonged to her husband after discovering he's cheating. Don't know what that says about the entertainment industry, but hey. When it comes to trading cards in general, fans spend years, if not decades, sizing up their collection, auctioning things off, trading things out, trying to build a collection. We see collections of Pokemon, baseball cards, all of these things, and the trend, I feel like, is we've seen a huge uptick in the trend recently, hitting big news and big numbers. So I don't know, I feel like when I was young there was this desire amongst people my age to build these collections, and then it was like laughed off in a lot of ways as I got older, and people were like, oh, that's never gonna actually be worth anything. Guys, you sit on it long enough, it comes back into popularity, and that seems to be what's happening with playing cards of many different kinds. This particular instance, though, the card collector in question was not the one who put them up for auction. According to a report from Sora News 24, the whole thing is unfolding on Yahoo Auctions in Japan. The card collection is entirely Yu-Gi-Oh! Focused and includes quite a few really rare pieces. However, the woman selling the card collection says the bull belongs to her husband, and she's selling them after he cheated on her. The official quote says, "This is my first listing on Yahoo Auctions. As an act of revenge against my husband for cheating on me, I have decided to sell his collection. The items are unopened, so I'd be happy if I can get a good price for these. The boxes have been on a shelf with a cover over them, so they aren't even dusty. I don't have much familiarity with the collectible card games, but to my untrained eyes, the items have no damage or tearing, so please accept their condition as is." That is the official posting notice. The listing includes 26 boxes of Yu-Gi-Oh cards. Most of them are still unopened. Several of the packs date back to the first days of Yu-Gi-Oh trading cards. You can find Magic Ruler, Mythological Age, Curse of Anubis, and more in this lot alone. The auction pushed forward to bids of nearly 65,000 USD and has since finally ended for one very lucky buyer. So, two thoughts to take home from this. First of all, if you're considering cheating and you have something valuable that can be auctioned off under your nose, don't. Or, maybe, and here's just a thought, don't cheat. I think communication in every aspect is very important. It's important in relationships. It's important in all aspects of life. I have thoughts, but those aren't particularly entertainment industry related thoughts, so I'll move on. The second takeaway from this is, again, for those of you who, like myself, might have had a collection obsession as a kid and been told by some adult, like, it'll never be worth anything, see if you still have it buried somewhere, because chances are it might actually be worth something now. So, there you go. Two takeaways from that particular topic. Moving right along. Also, catching up with the chat, Silly says, alternatively, it seems like you can just trade cheating on your spouse for your expensive collectibles. Oh, I mean, I suppose you could view it that way. Though, I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that the relationship isn't necessarily going to survive just because the wife is selling off the cards in revenge. So I think there's a little bit more of a trade-off than just the collectibles for that particular decision. Personal opinion. I don't know their life, but Silly says, also very excited that maybe my Pokemon cards are worth something now. Dude, check it out for sure. Like, I'm telling you, I've had, I think, 3 different topics of random buried collectibles coming to light and being worth a massive amount of money. So check it out for sure. We have G-Vid in the chat. What is up? We're just chatting about Yu-Gi-Oh cards making a comeback, and how if you have a random collection of literally anything that you were told would be useless, check it out, because trading collectibles are making a comeback. So hey, now you're caught up, mostly. Next up to chat about Telltale's The Walking Dead protagonist Clementine is getting her comic debut. Woo! Telltale's The Walking Dead, the final season, released back in August of 2018. That was the last time that we saw the heroine, Clementine. But she is returning at long last in a comic book. I don't know where copy came from. My brain combined 2 words, and that is okay. The following that I'm going to be talking about is going to contain spoilers. You have been warned. So to celebrate the 10-year anniversary of Robert Kirkman and David Alpert's Skybound, the two are launching a limited series aptly titled Skybound X. This will explore several existing comic worlds, but chief among them is The Walking Dead, with a brand new issue that will be all about Clementine. Each issue in the series, not just the Clementine one, will have a chapter called Rick Grimes 2000 that explores a bit of a what-if scenario within the Walking Dead universe, that of the one-hand gritty zombie slayer awakening from a second coma. This new world he finds himself in is one where aliens are revealed to have been controlling the hordes of undead all along. As for Clementine's issue, it is unclear what it's all about, but it's likely a follow-up to the last Telltale game. The mainline comic ends with a new society built where walkers are a thing of the past and very rarely seen. That is until Glenn's son brings one in. He does it for a freak show-style carnival, and Carl, who survived in the comics, finds one in his front lawn. He kills it, and it's deemed damage to public property, but he gets off the hook, essentially. It's a very weird old return to some semblance of normality, or normality. depending on how you feel like pronouncing English. But it left a lot of people asking a lot of questions, including where is Clementine in all this? So she survived the ending of the last Telltale game, so it's a really fair question. She's made it through thick and thin, and absolutely deserves a place in Rick Grimes' restored civilization. He, unfortunately, is dead by that point, as he was gunned down before it was ever truly realized, but his momentous spirit is what brought it to life, and so there's a statue dedicated to his honor in that new world. So maybe we'll see her stand face to face with the statue, or maybe not. She's crossed over with the main series at any rate, bumping both Glenn and Jesus. I think that's Jesus. Will we see her meet more of the iconic characters? That's the comic news I have. I usually do thumbs up when I'm done with spoilers, so no more spoilers from here on out on that particular topic. In case it's not absolutely obvious, I never did watch The Walking Dead. I think that's become clear. But I am actually really, really excited for this because I know quite a few people who are super invested in that storyline. And from an entertainment perspective, what they've done with that universe is actually really, really cool. So I've like studied pieces of it, but I've never watched it the whole way through. But yeah, super exciting, I think, for comic fans as well as fans of The Walking Dead. There you go. I love people chatting in the chat. That's fantastic. Saying hey. Next up to chat about. We've had a string of people apologizing, I feel like, publicly for a lot of random things. Most recently, Andy Samberg has officially apologized for the Everything is Awesome song from the Lego Movie. In case you don't know, Andy Samberg, known for comedic hits, he's known for Hot Rod, Brooklyn Nine-Nine, and is also known for the Lonely Island shorts for Saturday Night Live. More recently, he starred in Hulu's surprising summer hit, Palm Springs. It's a time loop comedy following Samberg's Niles and Sarah as they are both stuck repeating the same day of her sister's wedding. Though the time loop narrative itself is kind of a familiar convention, and it's seen a resurgence, really, of late in Happy Death Day, Russian Doll, and Boss Level. This particular comedy, produced by The Lonely Island, which I didn't initially realize, was absolutely lauded for its originality and very fresh spin on the genre. If you have not seen it, it is a fantastic movie. They do such a good job with this. Like I said, it's a very familiar trope, right? But it's just it's beautifully done. It's a fantastic movie. Hey, Silly agrees. Palm Springs is really good. It's one of the best time loop movies. I concur. I feel like time loop movies are very hard to get right because it is a well-known trope, but also it's really hard to take seriously because there's so many potential problems with it. Like, my favorite time loop tropes of all times are always the comedies. I do appreciate when somebody tries to take it seriously, but I think it usually misses the mark. Just personal preference, of course. But this particular film really, really digs in to make fun of its own trope, and it does it in a phenomenal way. And as Silly says in the chat, it also has J.K. Simmons. It's got a phenomenal cast. It's got a hilarious plot. It's got some lovely twists. It's a great film. As Silly's saying, you really lose it when you take any time travel situation too seriously. I would agree with that. I do like dramas with good time travel in it. For me, the make or break is really if you follow your own rules and or if you make fun of the rules. That's what'll make it a good or decent time travel trope, I think. Because it's so easy to build yourself into loopholes or like plot holes or contradict yourself with a theory of time travel. And I think dramas are more likely to do it. But if you just start off making it a little bit ridiculous and embrace that and run with it, I think there's a lot of potential. And this film does a very good job of it. G-Man says, speaking of J.K. Simmons, you should play Portal 2 before too long, if possible. Little sidetrack here. For those of you who don't know this, I played Portal, guys. I played a video game, and I finished it, so I've officially played a video game. It's happened, guys. I can no longer say I've never played a game. And I just, my camera did not appreciate how excited I got and decided to unfocus. So I'm gonna try to focus it by tricking it. See if this works. Hey! There we go. Thank you, Rodney. Saving the day. Yeah. I got so excited. I got too excited. I blew the focus on the camera. Yes, I played a game. I played Portal. I'm very proud of myself. I also got massively motion sick every time I tried to play it. So, I'm taking a little bit of a hiatus, before I jump into Portal 2. But I will. I have to. I will play Portal 2. We'll figure that out. Silly says, I didn't know he's in that, but he's a gosh darn treasure. I concur. And then commenting on whether my camera needs glasses. Probably. So yeah, aside from that super excited sidetrack of the fact that I played a game and I'm very proud of myself, and that's what that particular comment was regarding. Andy Samberg! Again, I'm just beast at transitions, guys. Anywho, aside from the absolute brilliance that is Palm Springs, Samberg's recent credits also include the Lego Movie soundtracks, because he and the Lonely Island provided the rap verses, or a few of the rap verses, on the track Everything is Awesome, sung by the duo Tegan and Sarah. If you don't know what song I'm talking about, it's everybody knows the song. I knew the song, or at least part of the song, before I ever saw the film or heard the song. Just that everything is awesome. Everybody knows that. It gets stuck in your head. It's now stuck in your head now. At this moment, you're welcome. Anyways, so Andy Samberg essentially is getting blasted for it being so catchy. It was actually not only nominated, but it received an Oscar. Nope, I lied. It received an Oscar nomination, my bad, for Best Original Song. So it was nominated for an Oscar. Why can't I word today? It's a good day. It's a Monday. It's fine. So this is back in 2014 when it was released. The Lego Movie features a very talented, very charming cast of voice actors. There's Chris Pratt, Will Ferrell, Elizabeth Banks, Will Arnett, Nick Offerman, Alison Brie, Charlie Day, Liam Neeson, Morgan Freeman, and more. There's so many amazing people in that movie. The film premiered to prolific praise for its lush animation, hilarious gags, and surprisingly thoughtful story. Again, I'm going to go ahead and personally comment on that. I feel terrible for saying this, but I had very low expectations for the movie, in spite of the absolutely phenomenal cast. I felt like it was really, really hyped, and I wasn't sure, and I was like, I like Legos, I like animation, I don't know if I would like these together, and it's... I just was very, very unsure. And I enjoyed the movie far more than I thought I would. It has now been more than 7 years since the release of the Lego Movie, and Samberg is apologizing for his contribution to the song Everything is Awesome. So let me go into this a little bit more before you guys take me too seriously, because you guys always take me seriously. Anyways, in an interview with BBC Radio 1, Samberg was asked jokingly if he wanted to apologize for the song's extreme catchiness. And I think to the interviewer's surprise, he did. He says, yes, I do apologize for that, especially to everyone out there with kids. That's a hard road to hoe, but we didn't write the hook, you know? We inherited it, and we just added some dumb raps. Inherited it. Something like that. So he notes and does say that he and the rest of the Lonely Island did not write the song's hook. Which I feel should alleviate some of his responsibility, as that's the song, or the line rather, that gets hooked in people's heads, which is why it's known as the hook. It's also still the only line of the song that I actually know. Sorry, Andy Samberg. Anywho. Yeah, I think that he's off the hook for it, but he's still apologized for it, which is nice. If you haven't seen the Lego Movie or heard the song, I don't know how. Congratulations, I suppose. But yeah, it's supposed to be a really repetitive earworm. It scores a scene where Pratt's character feels stuck in a very conformist society. The song does its job. It's very, like, the whole thing is, again, somewhat surprisingly very well done in every aspect. Anyways, Samberg currently has many exciting projects, ongoing and in the works, which is really cool. So he actually recently talked about the possibility, want to make this clear, this is not confirmed, this is just chatting about a possibility, of a sequel to Palm Springs with a WandaVision-like twist. I'm curious. Samberg is also currently filming the 8th season of Brooklyn Nine-Nine, which was canceled for a second time, but will still air a 10-episode final season. Yeah. He's doing I love Andy Samberg, so there's that. I thought that was a fun little thing to get stuck in your head right before I go on a water break. You're welcome. I'm gonna catch up on the chat really quick, though. Silly says, I prefer to sing it as everything is awful when I'm having a bad day. That's kind of sad, but I feel that. I get where you're coming from on that. Too much hype often leads to disappointment, which you've touched on in previous streams. Yes, I do think that is true and important. But there is also psychological backing behind just, like, repeating positive words over and over and over again, positively impacting your mental state, so meh. I don't know, is it overhyping to just constantly be like, everything's awesome? Or is it, like, sarcasm at that point in time? Or is it, like, I don't know. But again, you're welcome for all of you who have it in your head now. I'm gonna leave you with that while I go drink some water. As you should too. Insert regularly scheduled lecture on drinking water. Other beverages are lovely and good and have their time and place, and I appreciate them in their existence. But your body needs water, and your kidneys will thank you. So go drink water. Back, and actually a little overhydrated, I think. I chugged that water so fast. You know when you drink, like, or consume just too much in one go? Just you feel your stomach just like, that's what the stomach's doing. But it's water, so at least there's that going for me. Yeah, back to newsy stuffs. That was a lot of ums in a row, and I don't even know why. I have quite a few gaming topics. It's a very vague, broad topic, but it's a branch of the entertainment industry. and this is my attempt at connecting the next few topics. Still working on that, guys. It's fine. We'll get there. So in a very interesting and colorful interview, the Days Gone director, creative director and writer John Garvin has said that if you love a game, pay full price. Which, you know, not something that I really thought too hard about until I was kind of like diving into this a little bit and actually listening to what he had to say. But it's a thought. It's an interesting thought. Essentially what he's saying is if you love a game and if you want a sequel, you should, quote, buy it at effing full price. So this was reported by VGC. Garvin was a guest on God of War creator David Jaff's YouTube show and discussed many topics regarding Days Gone and his time in the video game industry. His appearance also arrives a bit over a week after Bloomberg's report of an unsuccessful Days Gone 2 pitch from Bend Studio. Garvin is, by the way, no longer with Sony Bend, was asked if he had heard if Days Gone being added to PlayStation Plus collection on PS5 had caused a meaningful uptick of engagement with the game. His quote on that is, "I do have an opinion on something that your audience may find of interest, and it might piss some of them off. If you love a game, buy it at effing full price. I can't tell you how many times I've seen gamers say, yeah, I got that on sale, I got it through PS Plus, whatever." And then Jaff responded to that by asking Garvin how you're supposed to know if you love a game until you've played it. And he says, I'm just saying, you don't. But don't complain if a game doesn't get a sequel if it wasn't supported at launch. Which I think is actually, like, kind of the key here, is the support it gets from a particular studio and everything else. There's marketing involved, there's all of this. But he goes on to say, God of War got whatever number millions of sales at launch, and you know Days Gone just didn't. I'm just speaking for me personally as a developer. I don't work for Sony. I don't know what the numbers are. And then he goes on also to dive into specifically explaining a piracy situation that occurred during his time working on PSP's Siphon Filter Dark Mirror. So he says, I can tell you that when we were doing Dark Mirror, we got so screwed on Dark Mirror because piracy was a thing and Sony wasn't really caught up on what piracy was doing to sales. And we would show them torrents. The torrent site had 200,000 copies of Dark Mirror being downloaded. If I remember it right, the numbers could be wrong, but regardless, I was pissed about it then, and I was like, this is money out of my pocket. So I think the uptick in engagement with the game is not as important as, did you buy the game at full price? Because if you did, then that's supporting the developers directly. So this in particular, just kind of as a general topic, I think is interesting and, you know, important. He's obviously very angry and frustrated about what happened to him in particular, and frankly, I can't blame him. But just from, like, an external point of view, I am no longer not a gamer. Still somewhat new to the industry. And in a very unique position where, as part of DVSI Entertainment and being connected to Before the Storm, I'm getting to see behind the scenes at the same time as I'm getting to dive into what it means to game, to play a game and things like that. And that for me has been really, really interesting and really educational in a lot of ways. And so I think the important thing or the interesting thing with this and what he's saying is you can, you know, launch a game with a whole bunch of sales, right, to try to get it out there, and then, like, later on, like what they did, getting an uptick of engagement on a particular station or whatever. And that's all well and good, but it's those initial sales, right, that are going mostly directly to the developers. And so, yeah, it's just an interesting thing to kind of think about. And I see both sides of it, because on the one hand, yeah, how do you know you like a game until you play it, right? And you don't necessarily want to pay full cost for a game that you don't know if you're going to like it or not. But then you get it on sale, or you get it, you know, slash price, or you get it pirated, and then you do enjoy it. What he's saying is you don't have any right to then be angry about the fact that they can't fund a sequel. And I get that. I get that frustration there for sure. So yeah, thoughts to chew on. There you go. In other news, which is, I think, personally sad, Amazon's Lord of the Rings MMO is officially canceled. So there's that. And this is also directly following the failure of Amazon's Crucible. And right ahead of the launch of New World, it's been confirmed officially that the company's Lord of the Rings MMO has officially been canceled. I'm personally sad because I'm slightly obsessed with Lord of the Rings. And I think this had potential, but I also think that the company kind of bit off more than it could chew, and that's the problems that it's currently facing, or seems to be at least, just random speculation. But this was supposed to be an online fantasy take, first announced back in 2019, and then since then the news about the latest Lord of the Rings was kind of mum. Now it's completely off the table. So this news regarding Amazon Game Studios' Lord of the Rings game comes via Bloomberg. In that report, it was noted that the cancellation is due to recent contract negotiations following Tencent's acquisition of Liu Technologies Holdings Ltd. So Amazon Game Studios was working in conjunction with Liu, which is a company based in China, and the decision to drop Lord of the Rings came on the heels of a dispute between Tencent and Amazon, according to sources that reported to Bloomberg. Following the reports of the dispute-driven cancellation, an Amazon spokesperson told the site, "We've been unable to source or to secure terms to proceed with this title at this time." Luckily, it does seem that this cancellation is not resulting in layoffs at this time. That same spokesperson did confirm that the developers that were attached to the fantasy game have all been moved to various projects. Earlier reports last year broke down Amazon Game Studios' troubles, including a lack of clear direction, correct role allocation, and an overly generalized approach to game creation. This does kind of seem to be evident regarding, relating to the swift cancellation of Crucible and the numerous delays New World has faced. Amazon Game Studios is right now in a very crucial part of its brand development period within the games industry, so eventually, the studio is going to need a solid win in order to secure a firm foothold within the video game market as an independent publisher. I think having the name Amazon behind it was certainly enough at the beginning to give it that push. But now, as people keep waiting to see what they're going to come up with, and as more and more projects get canceled, we'll just have to see kind of where they go from here. I think launching something and immediately kind of introducing multiple really big, really ambitious titles can be kind of detrimental. It can split focus a bit, and yeah, I think it was very, very ambitious. I'm still hopeful that it might happen eventually, because I think that you could do a lot with an MMO in Lord of the Rings universe. So here's to hoping. But I also think it's something that's going to need solid time and attention and development and everything else. I don't think it's something that can be taken on as like a side project. So here's to hoping we'll get it eventually. We'll have to see. Next up is another lawsuit, which I am fascinated by. So this particular one is of a different sort. I've talked a lot about different lawsuits, but one in particular is the Epic versus Apple, right? Which is kind of like Monopoly versus Monopoly, each claiming the other's a monopoly. A lot of just kind of throwing money around. This in particular is Nintendo versus Gary Bowser. Now, typically, in any sort of given big company versus individual person, I kind of leap to the defense of the person, right? Because it's just a little person. It's not necessarily the case this time around. So Nintendo of America filed this lawsuit on Friday against Gary Bowser, who is a reported leader of the hack creators team Executor. Bowser and another Team Executor member, Max Lorne, were arrested and charged with 11 felony counts in 2020. The new lawsuit alleges that Bowser infringed on Nintendo's copyright in creating and selling its hacks. The lawsuit was filed in Seattle court. It's looking to charge Bowser with 2 trafficking counts and 1 copyright violation. Nintendo described Bowser's operation as a, quote, international pirate ring. Love the name of it until you actually, like, realize that this is real and still happening. That sells Nintendo Switch hacking devices designed to circumvent the company's security measures, which allows buyers to run pirated Nintendo Switch games. Nintendo has previously filed multiple lawsuits against sellers of the hacking tools, including the SX Pro, SX Core, and SX Lite, 3 devices that are used to hack the Nintendo Switch and Nintendo Switch Lite. According to the lawsuit, Bowser has been creating and selling Nintendo hacking devices since at least 2013, when he distributed a device designed to hack the Nintendo 3DS. Throughout the lawsuit, Nintendo documented a lengthy history of Bowser's Switch hacks, as well as a breakdown of how the devices work. Nintendo's focused much of its legal efforts on resellers in the past, with multiple lawsuits filed over the past few years, one of which won the company a $2 million settlement. On Thursday, Nintendo won an injunction for a November lawsuit targeting an Amazon reseller. Previously, Nintendo has called Nintendo Switch hacking and piracy a serious, worsening international problem. In Friday's lawsuit, lawyers wrote that Bowser's wares continued to put more than 79 million Nintendo Switch and Nintendo Switch Lite consoles at risk from piracy. Team Executor operates as a for-profit company selling kits used to hack Nintendo devices. Some video game preservationists argue that video game piracy can be used to document and preserve games, but Team Executor, as always, has always been a controversial organization because of its methods. Nintendo is looking for damages, $2,500 for each trafficked device, as well as $150,000 for each copyright violation. Of course, Nintendo also wants to shut down the operation for good. Catching up on the chat really quick. G-Man saying, I don't recall Sony ever suing Game Shark or Game Genie. It's interesting. Not sure how I feel about this one. This, I think, definitely plays into and expands on kind of what I've talked about before about the law being very slow to keep up with technology in a lot of ways. Like I said, initially, anytime I see massive company against individual, I kind of want to side with the individual. But in this particular case, this individual is head of a for-profit company as well. And a lot of, okay. How do I say this without digging a very deep hole? A lot of times what we see is that there are very, very strict, straightforward repercussions for petty crimes, for small-scale theft, for things like that. But as crimes get bigger and become corporate crimes or white-collar crimes, it becomes harder to do anything about them, especially when you have an individual hiding behind a corporation. Oftentimes, where a person on a small scale would be imprisoned, a company or corporation on a large scale gets a little bit of a slap on the wrist, and no people are actually held accountable, which means that they just continue to commit crime. I personally, very much just as Ellie speaking, have a problem with that. And again, this kind of goes back to my personal background in criminology. And so this is something that I definitely want to know more about to understand a bit better. But things get so murky, both in the digital worlds and in the corporate world, right? But you're looking at, the kind of crime that impacts millions to billions of dollars, where, that's never held accountable to the same extent as somebody stealing $10 to eat or something like that. I'm gonna catch up in the chat real quick. G-Man says, sure, but I drew comparison to Game Shark for a reason. PlayStation only worked with black discs unless you used a mod chip or a Game Shark device. This was the only way to play PlayStation games that you'd burn backup copies of. Yes, and it enabled piracy, but it also enabled legitimate fair use scenarios. Okay, that's an interesting thought. My question is, in this particular note, what do these hacks allow you to do legitimately that you could not do without the hacks in this particular instance? Because from what I can see, I mean, well, see, okay. That's another thing, because it does mention that there are game preservationists who are arguing that video game piracy is used to document and preserve games. And so that kind of plays into what you were saying. But, like, now I feel like with the cloud, with everything else, like, I feel like there's ways around that aren't pirating. But I also am not as familiar with this particular situation as someone who has been a gamer for a long time, so there is that. I'm gonna catch up again on the chat. Then DMCA came out and made it illegal to circumvent digital rights management software. This was extremely unpopular and led to everything from single-player games that required a persistent internet connection, games that could not have backup copies made, games that only allowed a certain number of installs per purchase, and all manner of insanity. See, theoretically, which hugely theoretical, like I'm gonna go ahead and admit that straight up, things like that, those issues should be corrected within the market, right? So if a game limits number of installs or number of devices, or installs per purchase, whatever, and people don't like that, then that would reflect in the sales, and that would shift. Theoretically, it's much harder to actually play out. G-Man saying, imagine having to be online to play your brand new single player game in an age when broadband internet wasn't super mainstream. I can definitely see how historically that could have been frustrating, but at the same time, as I mentioned before, law tends to move slower than technology rather than quicker. It's sounding like that particular legislation was kind of moving faster than technology at the time, but not for very long. I think piracy, okay. In addition to Nintendo being negatively impacted by something like a hack that allows security bypasses. So Nintendo's being hit by this, obviously, enough to bring a lawsuit forward. But in addition to that, the other people who are taking a huge hit are the developers. Developers aren't usually multi-billion-dollar entities, right? They really, really rely on, as I mentioned before, upfront sales in order to make back what they poured into a game. You can have a game take 5-6+ years of just constant work. And if it's not purchased, if it's pirated, if it's leaked, if it's accessible through other means other than a legitimate source, then the people who are really getting hurt are the developers. And so in a situation like this, yes, the lawsuit is Nintendo versus Bowser. Nintendo's trying to protect Nintendo, 100%. But this isn't just Nintendo being impacted. G-Man saying, if I bought a Nintendo game in 1996 for my SNES, and I'm a software developer with enough know-how to load it to my computer, package it in an emulator, and upload it to my hot new Switch, why should that be illegal? Just because the hardware I used to do it might also be used to offer similar packaged software that was pirated. Okay, but are you going to use your know-how to then develop hacking kits to make a massive billion-dollar profit off of to enable piracy? Because Nintendo is not right now, at least, suing everyone who has ever just kind of done something on their own. These are people who are actively profiting off of hacks. And so, would I say that scenario should be illegal? Not necessarily. Should it be illegal to sell it? Yes. I can see why it would be. Because then you're profiting personally off of something that the people who made the game are not profiting off of. So that's copyright infringement, and the people who created the device are not profiting off of. And whether or not they need it, because you look at someone like Nintendo and you're like, well, why do they need the money? But again, they're not the only people being impacted. Like I said, there's so much in this that I am absolutely fascinated by, and I will say that we don't know how this lawsuit's going to go. So I have no clue if the courts are going to side with Nintendo or Bowser on this. But regardless of how this lawsuit goes, I will say that this is a person who was arrested last year and charged with 11 felony counts as well. So it's not just, like I said, a random person who's kind of doing something on their own. Silly is saying, if they could sue everyone involved, they definitely would. That's a possibility too. There's that. And then G-Man says, a person might sell the hardware I use to allow people to use emulation software on a Switch. Whether they use it for software that was legitimately bought or not is out of the seller's control. And a charge is not a conviction. That is true. 100%. Like I said, court cases have yet to be seen. So I'm interested to learn more about it, because as this goes further in court, both in the felony charges as well as this lawsuit, a lot of court records are public. Yay! So we get to learn more about the details of this, because that's another thing. This is a lot of what ifs. This is a lot of what if they're innocent? What if they weren't actually planning on pirating things? What if they didn't know they were making millions of dollars off of piracy? Like I said, the fact that this is a another large corporation kind of leads me to believe that it's not quite as innocent as we might be led to believe. But again, I will also say this. Silly and G-Man have very valid points in that Nintendo is a larger corporation that is kind of known for going to court. So there's that. Silly saying, I think what you have to look at is intent, and also maybe marketing that might indicate intent. I would agree with that. A huge portion of this is going to be intent. Communication will be key in this. Marketing will be key in this. There's a lot involved, and I'm really curious to see how it goes. Because I am fascinated by legal topics. What I want to see more of in the general grand scheme of life are, across the board, laws keeping up with cyber and technologically advanced crimes, because we don't see that happening often. The other thing that I would like to see is people being held responsible for amoral decisions that their company is making. It's a very kind of broad way of saying that, and I want to say that across the board. Again, I want to see people running corporations held accountable for crimes, because we don't see that very often. And Silly's also mentioning this could be precedent setting and could be used against smaller targets. Yes. Depending on the details of the case, as well as how the ruling is worded and all of that, yes, you're right. That could happen, and that would not be good. But it could also be precedent setting for, again, holding the leader of a company accountable for corporate crimes, which I'm personally in favor of. But you're right. Very slippery slope here. A lot of information that is not public yet. And a lot more that remains to be seen. I'm definitely going to just be keeping an eye out on that. I could talk about this literally all night, but I've already talked y'all's ears off, and I do have a couple more topics to cover. Loving this conversation, though. Thank you guys so much. You're bringing up very good points. I've said it a billion times before. I'll say it a billion times again. I'm very new to this industry, and so I have a lot to learn. But yeah, I am fascinated. As always, as we get more information on this particular lawsuit or similar ones, we will pass that information on to you, mostly because I like to talk about it. Yeah, you've given me stuff to think about. Hopefully I've given you something to think about, or you could just think I'm way off the mark, which, fair. Happens quite often, so there's that. But anyways, moving right along to another fun topic. Square Enix was rumored to be for sale, and shut that down real quick. So Square Enix has officially, in a report, denied, essentially, that it is selling itself off. It's also denied receiving any acquisition offers. This was clarified by the Japanese publisher on Friday. So last week, Bloomberg Japan reported that several interested parties were wanting to snap up the JRPG maker, citing, quote, two bank officials familiar with the situation, end quote. News of the acquisition seemed solid enough that Square Enix stock rose 13.8% on the Tokyo Stock Exchange. A few hours later, however, Square shot those rumors down with an official statement. So no, the Final Fantasy company is not for sale. For those of you who are hoping to buy it up, sorry, it's off the table. And also nobody's approached it with an offer. So the official statement says, we do not consider selling off the company or any part of its business, nor have we received any offer from any third party to acquire the company or any part of its business. Honestly, if it was sold, it'd be a bit of a shock. But it's not entirely out of the question. We have seen some serious acquisitions and mergers over the past year in particular. For example, Bethesda, which really is a similarly sized RPG giant, recently bought up by Microsoft for a toasty $7.5 billion, as you do. And the Xbox firm was also among the short list of companies rumored to be looking to buy Square Enix. So, not foundless rumors, but still surprising. And I think I had mentioned that as a possibility. Like, that's a lot going on there. The timing of it, though. I don't know. Any rumor that causes a 13.8% stock rise makes you wonder where that rumor came from. But, you know, that's just me throwing out thoughts. Silly says, dang, I'd just gotten out my checkbook. Right? We totally could have pulled together and pulled it off. What? We just have to outbid about 7.5 billion. Could totally do that. Anyways. Last thing I have to chat about. I was trying for a transition. Wasn't gonna happen. We all know this. Why do I try? Mudvayne are officially reuniting. This is music news. And super exciting news for fans, including some people at Dubious Eye Entertainment. So this is for you. After over a decade of silence, Mudvayne are reuniting. So today, the long-gone metal group announced that they're officially getting back together after a 12-year hiatus for a series of festival appearances. It has been confirmed that they'll be performing at all 4 Danny Wimmer Presents U.S. festivals in 2021. This is Incarceration Music and Tattoo Festival in Ohio, Louder Than Life in Kentucky, Aftershock in California, and Welcome to Rockville in Florida. Just catching up to the chat real quick. I'll get back to you, silly. These festival appearances are going to mark the band's first concert since 2009. And according to a press release, these 4 shows will be their only stage appearances in 2021. Mudvayne was formed back in 1996 and consists of Chad Gray on vocals, Greg Tribet on guitar and backing vocals, Matthew McDonough on drums and synthesizer, and Ryan Martini on bass. Silly says Mudvayne. Now that's a name I haven't thought of in a long time. Right? They kind of went on a break and then just kind of stopped. Which, you know, frankly, I identify with. Going on a little hiatus and then just like, you know, later, and then suddenly, oh, it's been a decade? What? I'm not quite that bad, but I have gone on a trip that was supposed to last for 3 months and stayed out of the country for a year, so I can't judge. Fun stuff, man. But yeah, this is unexpected, and really exciting. And I wanted to end on an upbeat, because I feel like there was a lot of, like, I don't know, controversial and or negative and or just kind of sad news today. So I wanted to make sure I was talking about something maybe unexpected, but kind of exciting. It's both exciting and nerve-wracking that festivals are happening this year. I'm choosing to look at this with hope. Because I have to look at this with hope. But this is such a fun, I think, celebration of life in a lot of ways. So there we go. That's it. That's all I have for today. Today's been an interesting day. Definitely been a Monday. But hey, guys, my internet held up and I am here for it. As I said before, do not anticipate any more problems like I had last week. For those of you who might have missed it, it appeared to have been a larger scale, blackout's not the right word, but essentially problem with my particular internet provider over a very large area of which I am unfortunately a part of, that lasted for a few days. So that impacted my Thursday eSpot stream and also my Elevated stream on Friday. So apologize for that, but it looks like it's cleared up. I want to just thank you guys for your patience through all of that. Also, your patience through me tonight. My brain's been as slow as my internet was last week. But it's been a really fun day, so thank you guys. Thank you, as always, so much for your support. Thank you for supporting me in this time change. Hopefully it works better for some of you guys. That was at least part of the decision or weight behind this decision we made to shift it. There were several factors involved. But yeah, hopefully this works out really for everybody. That's the intention. Either way, thank you. Thank you so much. Be sure to check out Zombie in a Jar on Spotify. That's the word I'm looking for. Real exciting. New album. Fun stuff. Thank you guys. That's it. I'm gonna be back on Thursday, and it will again be the same time slot. So that's 9 p.m. Eastern time, 6 p.m. if you live on the other coast. Bit different, moving it a bit later. We'll see how it goes. We're hoping for good turnout. We're hoping for fun topics. Yeah, I will see you guys on Thursday. In the meantime, have a great week. Make sure you're staying happy and healthy and hydrated. And, of course, as always, above all, stay devious.